Hit that like button if you've ever trusted someone who didn't deserve it. It helps this story reach more people. And trust me, you won't want to miss how this one ends. Now, let's begin. There's a specific kind of silence that settles in just before your world explodes. You don't know it's happening at first. It creeps in slowly, like fog on a winter morning. But you feel it in your bones. Something's off. Something's wrong. That's exactly how I felt when my boss, Richard Whitmore, pulled me into his office on a random Wednesday and said, "Pack your bags. We're flying out to Munich next week." He made it sound like a promotion, like I should have been honored. "We're finalizing the European contracts," he said, adjusting his gold cufflinks. "You're the right man to handle it." I was excited. I'd been working hard, long nights, weekends, sacrificing time with my wife, Claire, to climb the ladder. This trip was supposed to be the payoff, but the way he looked at me that day, something didn't sit right. It wasn't the trip. It was him. I'd caught the glances between him and Claire during company events. Subtle, but real. Too familiar. He'd ask about her at work, always casually. "What's Claire been reading lately?" "She's into that classic literature, right?" "I've got a few titles she might love." It seemed innocent. But after a while, I stopped brushing it off. Claire would smile when she mentioned how well-read Richard was, or how thoughtful he seemed when he gave her a book recommendation. And now he wanted me, conveniently, gone for 2 weeks? Still, I told myself I was overthinking. That maybe I was just paranoid. After all, Richard had a wife, a son, a picture-perfect life. But gut instincts don't lie, and mine were screaming. So I packed my bags, kissed Claire goodbye, flew overseas. I should have been focused on the business deals, but I couldn't shake the feeling. Richard left after 2 days, claiming a family emergency. No explanation, and that's when the final piece clicked. I changed my flight, came home early, didn't tell a soul. Because if my suspicion was right, I wasn't walking into my house. I was walking into a war zone. The plane touched down just after midnight. I didn't sleep on the flight. Couldn't. My brain ran like a storm engine, feeding me images I couldn't turn off. Richard with Claire, in our kitchen, sitting at the dinner table where we used to eat lasagna and talk about our future. Laughing in my house. Every mile closer to home, the more that invisible weight crushed my chest. The cab ride from the airport was suffocating. The city had never felt so still. Every traffic light took an eternity. Even the driver seemed to sense my silence, not saying a word, eyes focused on the road. My suitcase sat beside me, untouched since I packed it 2 days ago. I hadn't even unpacked in Germany. I couldn't think past this gut-wrenching suspicion. Then came the turn onto my street. I didn't realize how fast my heart was beating until the driver stopped in front of the house. I barely registered his voice. "Here you go, sir." I stepped out, stared at the front door. My house. The one I'd saved up for. The one I'd painted myself. Brick by brick. It looked the same, but it felt wrong. Like walking into a memory you don't belong to anymore. The porch light was off. The curtains were drawn. Claire never drew the curtains. She said it made her feel like the house was hiding. Maybe it was. I didn't knock, didn't announce. Just used my key like I always did. The door creaked open, and the warmth of the house hit me. The scent of lavender from the diffuser she always kept in the hallway. A throw blanket on the arm of the couch. A book open on the side table. Then I heard it. Low. Muffled. Laughter. Richard's unmistakable, self-satisfied laugh. That rich, smooth chuckle he used when he landed a big contract. The same laugh he used when he told me, "I've got your back, buddy." And Claire's voice. Not nervous, not guilty, just relaxed, comfortable, familiar. I walked toward the living room slowly, my steps silent, my fists clenched. I didn't want to believe it, but I needed to see it. And then I did. Richard sat on the couch in a white bathrobe. My bathrobe. Claire sat beside him, legs curled up, wearing my t-shirt. She was sipping coffee, smiling like this was just another lazy Sunday morning. They didn't see me right away. They were too wrapped up in their little fantasy. Two people playing house, pretending like they built this life together. I stepped into the room, and everything stopped. Claire's mug slipped from her hand and shattered on the floor. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. Richard blinked like he'd seen a ghost. "You're supposed to be in Germany," he said, standing up. I didn't answer. I punched him square in the jaw. The sound was solid. Bone meeting bone. He staggered back, groaning. I didn't stop. I grabbed him by the collar of my robe and threw him against the wall. The mirror shattered. Claire screamed, trying to pull me off him, but I shoved her aside like dead weight. "You think you could stay in my house?" I roared. "Sleep in my bed? Eat my food while I worked for you?" Richard held up his hands, blood running from his mouth. "Wait! Wait! Listen!" I didn't want to listen. I hit him again. He crumpled to the floor, gasping for air, trying to crawl. That's when I stopped, not because I felt pity, but because I wanted him to suffer consciously. Claire knelt by him, sobbing now, begging me to stop, to talk, to listen. Her words were noise. I turned and walked out the front door. Neighbors peeked from windows. One woman across the street stepped onto her porch with a hand to her mouth. Someone must have called the cops, and I hoped they did, because I had nothing to hide. When the sirens came, I stood outside with my arms folded, and inside, behind me, the life I thought I had crumbled quietly to dust. The ambulance pulled away, sirens muted in the thick night air. I stood on the front lawn, the grass still damp from last night's rain, watching the red and blue lights disappear down the road. Neighbors gathered in clusters on porches or peeked through windows. No one dared speak to me. They'd seen it all, heard the yelling. Claire sat on the front steps, shivering, not from cold, but from the collapse of the little world she thought she could control. I didn't say a word to her. The officers had been surprisingly calm. They questioned me professionally. When I explained that Richard had entered my home without permission, that he wasn't supposed to be in the country at all, and that I came home early from a company-sanctioned trip he had organized, something shifted in their eyes, a mix of understanding and something close to pity. "Your wife confirmed he was staying here?" "She didn't deny it," I said flatly. They exchanged a look. Then one of them closed his notebook. "Looks like we'll leave this one alone, for now." And they did. As they walked off, Claire finally looked up at me. "Please, we need to talk." I didn't even acknowledge her. I walked past her and into the house. She tried to follow. I turned on her. "You step one foot in this house again, I'll have you removed? Legally." Her face cracked. The tears came instantly. "You can't just shut me out. This is my home too." "Not anymore." I closed the door and locked it. She stayed on the porch, sobbing, knocking, then pounding. Eventually, she slumped into a heap against the door and didn't move. I didn't open it. Not once. Inside, I looked around. And now, every object in my house, every chair, every painting, every dish was tainted. I saw him sitting in the chair I bought from my first paycheck. I saw her laughing with him over the dishes we picked out together. I saw everything. That night, I didn't sleep. I didn't even sit down. I just stood by the window, watching, the street, listening to her cry outside. But I felt nothing. No sadness, no rage, just silence. Until the phone rang. I didn't answer. I let it ring. Then it rang again. 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 After the fifth call, I checked the ID. Melanie, Richard's wife. I picked up. Hello? There was silence on the other end. Just breathing. Then, he's supposed to be in Munich. Yeah, I said. He's not. He's in the hospital. Stitches, bruised ribs, nothing life-threatening. Silence again. He told me the trip was extended, she said softly. He said he had to stay a few extra days. I took a breath. I walked in on them in my living room, wearing my clothes, drinking my coffee, playing house like they owned the place. Still, she didn't speak. Then came a sound, a sharp, ragged breath, like she'd been gut-punched. I'm sorry, I added. She cleared her throat. Don't be. Thank you. And she hung up. That was the moment I realized something. This wasn't just betrayal. It was war. The next day, Claire was still on the porch. Her face was pale, hair disheveled. She hadn't changed clothes. When I opened the door to grab the morning paper, she jumped to her feet. I know what I did was wrong, she cried. But we can fix this. Please, just talk to me. You let him move in, Claire, I said, voice steady. He walked around here like he owned it. Slept in our bed. You knew I'd be gone and you invited him in. I didn't mean for it to go that far. You planned it. I didn't. You didn't stop it either. She dropped to her knees. I've lost everything, she sobbed. Please, don't let me lose you too. I walked inside and shut the door in her face. She stayed out there for hours. I ignored every sound, every knock, every plea. By evening, her sister arrived. A black SUV pulled up, and I watched from the upstairs window as her sister helped her. Claire resisted at first, screamed, cried. But eventually, she left. 2 days later, Melanie filed for divorce. Richard's grown son, who once idolized his father, didn't even visit him in the hospital. The world they built on lies collapsed. Overnight. And my house? My house was silent again. But the echoes of betrayal were just beginning to settle. By the end of the week, Richard's face was back on the company's leadership board webpage, bruised and smiling in an old, outdated photo. The irony made my stomach turn. A man like him, who smiled with blood on his teeth, was still wearing the mask, but not for long. I'd been quiet since the incident. Calm, even. Almost too calm. Because I wasn't finished. Not by a long shot. I showed up to work 2 days after the fight. No email, no warning. Just walked through the doors, tie knotted tight, hair combed like any other Tuesday morning. The receptionist blinked in surprise. Didn't think you were back yet, she said, half standing. Early wrap-up, I replied. Did Richard make it in today? Her smile faltered. He took the week off. Said he was sick. Right. I walked past her and up to my office. Every eye I passed carried questions. Whispers chased behind me like smoke. Something had spread already. But no one knew the full story. Not yet. I called an all-hands meeting. Mandatory. Most of the staff trickled in with coffees in hand, murmuring to each other. Some glanced around, expecting Richard to lead. But I stepped forward. Thanks for coming. I know it's unusual for me to call one of these without the CEO. They shifted uncomfortably. One guy coughed. Another checked his watch. I'll be brief, I said. You've all probably heard the rumors. I want to confirm one of them so there's no confusion. Richard Jacobs is currently not in Munich. He hasn't been on a business trip. He's recovering in a hospital here in town. That landed like a bomb. Murmurs exploded. Eyes darted. I held up a hand. Why? Because while I was supposed to be representing the company overseas, Richard was at my house. With my wife. A few gasps. One woman audibly said, "No way." Oh yes. While I worked for this company, his company, he took the opportunity to cross every professional, personal, and ethical line in existence. I paused, scanning the room. Many of you trusted him. I did too. But if this company is going to rebuild its integrity, we need transparency. I've sent a formal letter to the board. Everything I just told you, and more, is in it. I've also submitted my resignation. A collective shift of confusion swept through the room. "You're quitting?" someone asked. "I'm leaving this company," I said. "But I'm not leaving." The truth behind. The room fell dead silent. I walked out before anyone could follow me. I'd said what I needed to say. 2 hours later, I got a call from an old coworker. "Dude, the board just suspended Richard indefinitely," he said. "Apparently, Melanie lawyered up hard, sent them legal documents about the affair. This is going public." Good. Later that day, Melanie called me again. "You've done more in 2 days than I could in 2 years, she said. I wasn't trying to help, I replied, just trying to destroy the lie. "Well, thanks anyway," she paused. "Just so you know, our son doesn't want to see him, says he can't even look at him." That hit me in a place I didn't expect. A son turning his back on his father. A man throwing away not just a marriage, but his legacy. Richard would recover physically, but his name, his pride, those wouldn't heal so easily. Claire tried to call that night. I didn't answer. Instead, I opened the drawer of our bedroom dresser, the one she never touched, and pulled out a photo of us on our honeymoon. I stared at it for a while. The way she leaned into me, hand on my chest, like I was her entire world. She used to say I made her feel safe, and she destroyed the very thing she once found refuge in. Now she was calling non-stop, leaving voicemails in a voice raw from crying, from desperation, begging for one more chance, promising she'd do anything, that it was a mistake, that she never meant for it to happen. But I wasn't buying it. Because what kind of mistake takes planning? Takes time? Involves deception over weeks, months, even years. That's not a mistake. That's a choice, and she made it. So now, I was making mine. I poured myself a drink that night, sat by the fire alone, let the silence stretch out like a long, cold road. Richard had lost his job. Claire had lost her home. World I knew had crumbled. But in the ruins, I found something steady. Clarity. I would never go back to the man I was before, and I would never open that door to her again. Not now. Not ever. 3 days after the public fallout, it rained. A hard, unrelenting rain, like the sky itself, was purging what had been festering beneath the surface. I sat by the window, watching sheets of water blur the world outside, the glass fogged with my breath as I leaned forward, clutching the old ceramic mug Claire once gifted me. It was the one with the crooked handle she made in a pottery class we took together early in our marriage. Funny how even the ugliest things carry memories. The knock came around dusk, slow, deliberate, almost like it didn't want to be heard. But I heard it. I always did. I stayed seated, let it knock again, and again. Then, silence. And then, her voice. "Please, please, open the door. I need to talk to you." I didn't move. Her voice cracked. "I know I have no right to ask, but I've lost everything. I don't have anywhere else to go." I took a slow sip of coffee. Bitter. Burned. Perfect. I was stupid, she continued, words tumbling faster now. I don't even know why I did it. I thought I wanted something different, I thought he saw me. The rain soaked her voice, made her sound smaller, like a child lost in a storm. But he didn't. Not really. He used me. I see that now. I was just something to conquer. A new toy. A pause. You were the only one who ever loved me. Still, I didn't respond. I begged my sister to bring me back. She said I was insane, that you'd never forgive me. But I had to try. I couldn't live with myself if I didn't. She sat down on the front step again. I heard the soft rustle of her coat as she curled into herself. I miss everything, she whispered. The way you smelled in the morning, the way you made coffee, the way you made me feel like I mattered. Her voice broke. I threw it all away for a man who never even planned to leave his wife. I stood up now. I walked slowly to the hallway. The house echoed with her voice. I'll stay out here all night if I have to, she sobbed. I just want to talk. Just 5 minutes. Silence. Then, I'll wait forever if I have to. And she did. That night, I didn't sleep. I listened. To the storm. To her quiet weeping. To the whispers of guilt I refused to answer. The next morning, I opened the door, not for her, but for the sun. She was still there. Knees pulled to her chest, hair drenched, lips blue. She looked up at me with red, swollen eyes. Please, I'm so sorry. I didn't speak. She tried to reach for me. I stepped back. You don't live here anymore, I said, my voice like gravel. And you don't get to be sorry now. I made a mistake. No, I cut her off, ice in every syllable. You made a series of choices. And now you have to live with them. Tears rolled freely down her cheeks. Please, just help me fix it. I'll do anything. I'll go to therapy. I'll move out. I'll wait. Just don't give up on me. I studied her for a long, cold moment. Then I walked past her, down the steps, and across the street, straight to her sister's car, which was parked nearby. I knocked once. Her sister rolled down the window. She's all yours, I said. Her eyes narrowed. You sure? I nodded. She got out without a word, wrapped Claire in a blanket, and helped her to the car. Claire looked back at me, eyes pleading through rain and regret. I didn't flinch. I stood on that porch until the car disappeared. Then I went inside and finally, cried. Not for her, but for the man I used to be. The man who believed in forever. Who believed in promises made under altars and vows whispered under soft lights. That man was dead. She buried him, and now she wanted to dig him up and pretend nothing happened. But love doesn't survive betrayal. Not when it's carved into the walls of your home. Not when it's soaked into the pillows of your bed. Not when every inch of your life has been touched by someone else's hands. Claire thought pain was temporary. She didn't understand. Some wounds don't close. Some betrayals echo forever. And I had finally stopped listening. After Claire's sister drove her away, the silence in the house returned like a long-lost friend. But this silence wasn't peaceful. It was thick, unforgiving, and loud in all the places that used to hold love. I walked room to room that night, touching surfaces like I was searching for ghosts. I stopped at the photo frames. Some I took down. Others I left. Reminders of what once was, and the caution tape of what should never be again. In our closet, her side was half empty. A few shirts left hanging. I stared at them for a long while, wondering how something so small could hold so much weight. I could hear her voice in my head, rehearsing excuses, rewriting the past. That's what cheaters do, right? They reshape memory until they're victims too, But I wasn't interested in revisionist history. I wanted finality and justice. The next morning, I met with an attorney. I brought everything: photos, statements, even the unused plane ticket I'd bought for the full 2-week trip. The one I never used because I knew. Something in me knew all along. She reviewed it quietly, flipping through documents like a priest reading last rites. "You're in a good position," she finally said. "Infidelity this clear? The courts will favor you. House, assets, maybe, even alimony if you want it reversed." "I don't want her money," I replied. "I want her to feel everything she made me feel." The lawyer gave a slight nod. "That can be arranged." That evening, as I sat sipping scotch by the fireplace, a knock came again, not the desperate kind, a firm, calculated one. I opened the door to find Melanie, Richard's wife. She looked different than the last time we spoke. Stronger, like someone who'd walked through fire and come out steel. "I thought it was time we talked," she said. I nodded, stepping aside. We sat in the kitchen, the same kitchen where Claire and I once argued over dinner, where Richard might have eaten with her when I was gone. Every surface suddenly felt tainted. "He tried calling me," Melanie said, staring into her tea. I didn't answer. We sat in silence for a moment. "He lied to me for 2 years," she continued. "Told me your wife was just a friend. Said she was struggling and he was mentoring her." I almost laughed at that. Mentoring her from my bedroom? Her eyes flashed, but she didn't smile. "That's the thing about liars. They can hold your gaze while stabbing you in the back." Then she looked up at me. "What are you going to do?" I took a long breath. "Divorce her. End it clean. Sell the house. Leave the memories here to rot." Melanie nodded slowly. "I'm doing the same," she said. "I'm also taking Richard to court. Publicly." I leaned forward. "You want help?" She raised an eyebrow. I pulled out a folder. Inside was the footage. Security cam clips from our front porch, Claire's voice begging, confessions echoing between sobs, the time-stamped arrival of Richard's car. My home camera had captured it all. Melanie flipped through it silently, her face unreadable. "This will destroy him," she said softly. "Good." She closed the folder and looked at me. "I don't think they ever thought we'd talk." I shook my head. "They thought we'd both be too broken to fight back." Then she said something that shifted the ground beneath me. "You know Claire was pregnant once, right?" I froze. "No." She told me she couldn't have kids. Melanie blinked. "That's strange. She told Richard the baby was his. She said she lost it during a trip they took. I only found out because I saw a prescription in her name. Prenatal vitamins." My blood ran cold. I clenched my fists under the table. She lied to me about everything. Melanie placed the folder down. "They deserve each other. Let them rot in the same hell they built for us." I nodded, the weight of it all pressing down on my chest. But through that weight came clarity. It was no longer about heartbreak. It was about reclaiming myself. My dignity. My life. "I want to burn the bridge behind me," I said. "Then light the match," she whispered. What would you do if you caught your boss playing house with your spouse? Would you let them speak, or let your fists do the talking? Drop your answer in the comments. I want to hear from everyone watching this. And hey, if this story has you on edge, hit that like button so more people find it. Let's get back to the chaos. The first domino fell on a Monday morning. Richard's company issued a formal announcement. Due to unforeseen circumstances, our CEO will be taking an indefinite leave of absence, effective immediately. No details, no explanations, but behind the polished words was chaos. The board had seen the evidence. Melanie delivered the folder to the company's legal team like a torch to dry timber. Security footage, audio from porch cameras, timeline inconsistencies, even the hotel receipts she'd dug up from an old corporate credit card. It was undeniable. Richard's pristine image as the charismatic visionary? Gone. Investors started whispering. Employees began speculating. A few brave ones even joked about it openly, finally unafraid of the man who once ruled with charm and threats in equal measure. Within 48 hours, HR had received 3 more complaints, from women who now had the courage to come forward. By Friday, Richard's face was scrubbed from the company's website. The crown had fallen, and he was left bleeding in a hospital bed, abandoned by the world he built on deception. Melanie didn't visit him. His son didn't either. In fact, his son, a Aita college senior, released a statement on social media. "I won't stand behind a man who disrespected our family. You betrayed my mother and disgraced our name. Enjoy your silence." It went viral within hours. Claire, meanwhile, was unraveling in her own quiet storm. She sent letters, handwritten ones, as if ink could undo betrayal. I received 4 in the span of a week, each more desperate than the last. I wasn't thinking clearly. I was lonely. He meant nothing. But the words rang hollow, no matter how carefully they were written. I didn't write back. Instead, I filed the divorce papers and sent her a formal notice through my lawyer. Simple, unemotional, final. She showed up at the courthouse with puffy eyes and trembling hands. Her sister stood beside her, quiet but firm. When the judge reviewed the case, he didn't even ask for clarifications. The evidence was overwhelming. I was awarded the house, the car, even the savings account Claire once tried to hide from me. Look on her face when the judge read the decree was one I'll never forget. Like a child realizing the fire she set couldn't be undone. Melanie and I watched it unfold from the hallway. "That's justice," she whispered. "Not quite," I said, because there was one last move left on the board, a final twist of the knife. Claire had applied to a teaching fellowship a few months earlier. Ironically, to help women who had experienced betrayal in relationships. I forwarded the entire file to the board of that fellowship. They revoked her candidacy. In the fallout, friends began to pull away from her. The social circle we once shared? Gone. Even her own parents, once sympathetic, began to question her choices when they learned about the secret pregnancy, something I never confronted her about directly. I let the silence do the talking. Weeks passed. One evening, I was sipping wine in my now peaceful home, watching the fire flicker, when the doorbell rang. It was Melanie. She had a small envelope in her hand. "From the attorney," she said. "Just thought you'd want to hear it in person." I opened it. Inside was confirmation. Richard had signed the final divorce papers. He tried to negotiate custody of their vacation home. She laughed in his face and took everything instead. We stood on the porch, quiet, for a moment. "You know," she said, "for 2 people who didn't know each other 2 months ago, we sure burned a lot of bridges together." I smiled. "Some bridges are meant to be torched." She turned to leave, but hesitated. "You ever think about what comes next?" I looked out. Over the yard, the breeze carrying the scent of new beginnings. All the time, she smiled, then walked back to her car. I didn't stop her. Not yet, because healing doesn't happen in rebounds or revenge. It happens in moments like this. After the storm, when everything's been stripped bare, and you finally see the world for what it is. Claire and Richard built their lives on lies. Melanie and I? We were building from truth, and maybe, just maybe, that was the real twist all along. Months passed. Seasons shifted. The storm had ended, but the ground still remembered the flood. Some days I woke up in a fog, half expecting to find Claire curled beside me. Habit is a cruel ghost, but each day I stood a little straighter, breathed a little easier, laughed a little more. The house, once a prison of memory, started to feel like mine again. I changed the furniture, repainted the walls, planted roses in the backyard, deep red ones, full of thorns. One morning, I received a small envelope, no return address. Inside was a photograph. It was Claire, standing in front of a cheap apartment complex. Her hair was disheveled, her eyes hollow. She looked nothing like the woman who once waltzed through cocktail parties. No note, no explanation, just an image of what she had become. I never found out who sent it. Maybe her sister. Maybe Claire herself. Maybe someone else entirely. I folded it in half and slid it into a drawer I never opened again. That night, I had dinner with Melanie. We sat on the patio of a quiet restaurant just outside the city. There was something different between us now. A stillness. Not romantic tension. Something deeper. Respect. Understanding. A bond forged not in love, but in mutual betrayal. As the waiter poured wine, Melanie looked across the table and said, "Have you ever wondered why they picked each other?" I nodded slowly. Like out of all the people in the world. Why those two? She leaned forward. Because they both hated who we made them feel like. That stuck with me. Claire hated how I saw through her walls. Richard hated that Melanie expected more from him than charm and ambition. Together, they were free to be selfish, reckless, unjudged. They didn't fall in love. They found someone who made them feel unaccountable. I thought that was the twist, but I was wrong. 2 weeks later, I received a call from Melanie. Her voice was shaky. "You might want to sit down," she said. I sat. "It's about Claire and Richard." My pulse slowed. "What about them?" "They're living together." I paused. "In that apartment from the photo?" "Yes, but that's not the part you need to hear." She exhaled. "Richard's company is being investigated. Apparently, he siphoned funds for personal use. The fake trip? The hotel? He used corporate money to cover everything. Even the wine they drank in your house." I clenched my jaw. And Claire's name is all over the expenses. He added her as a consultant months ago. She signed things. She cashed checks. I felt like I was falling through the floor. "She's going to be investigated too," Melanie said. "Maybe even indicted." I stood in my kitchen, staring at the countertop where Claire once laughed over morning coffee. It all came crashing down again. Not just infidelity, not just betrayal. This went deeper. This was criminal. Melanie paused before adding the final nail. "There's one more thing." "What?" "She's pregnant again." Silence. She says, "It's his." I couldn't speak. Melanie whispered, "Do you believe her?" I didn't answer. Because the truth is, I didn't care. They had burned down everything, and now they were trying to build a nursery on top of ashes. Good luck with that. But the twist? The real twist came a month later. I got another envelope. This one from an anonymous source. Inside, a notarized medical record. Dated a year ago. Claire had a medical condition, one that made natural pregnancy extremely unlikely. Almost impossible. And yet she claimed she had lost a baby with Richard, and now she was pregnant again? Melanie received the same document. We compared notes. That's when it hit us. Claire lied to both of us. Maybe she had never been pregnant at all. Maybe this one was a desperate attempt to keep Richard loyal, just as she had tried to keep me with her tears. But Richard, he believed her. He bought her a ring. Melanie saw the receipt through a mutual friend who worked at the jewelry store. They were engaged, planning a quiet wedding. She had manipulated one man into ruining his career and marriage. Now she was doing it again. This time, with the same lies, same tears, same tricks. History doesn't repeat. It rhymes. I stared out my window that night as thunder rolled in the distance, and I smiled. Not because I won, but because I survived. Because sometimes, the real revenge isn't what you do to someone. It's who you become without them. If you made it this far, you've just witnessed one of the coldest revenge twists on this channel. So let me ask you, do cheaters always get what they deserve? Drop your thoughts below, and if you want more jaw-dropping stories like this one, make sure to subscribe, like, and share this with someone who needs to hear it.